Hi, welcome to Back to School Night 2021. Before we get started, if you would like to view a YouTube closed caption translation, there are some steps that you can follow in order to turn that on. If you need to pause the video right now to go ahead and do that, please feel free to do so. So welcome to Language Arts 8. I'm Miss O'Brien. It's nice to meet you. A little bit about me. I grew up in this area. I went to Fairfax County Public Schools, K through 12. I went to the State University of New York College at Geneseo for college, and I went to the University of Virginia for my master's degree. I'm a bassist. I like to read, casually run, play some video games, and listen to music. And I'm sure all of your students at this point have heard about my cat, Ellie, because I love to bring her up. So with that in mind, my approach to Language Arts 8 as a teacher, as a facilitator of the classroom, I believe that students learn best when they feel safe and seen. In other words, I think it's very important for students, especially in this sort of developmental gateway time of 8th grade, transitioning from middle school to high school, to feel that they can be and explore their authentic selves without having to censor some aspects of themselves out of pressure to fit in with their peers. I also believe it's really important that students are in an environment where they feel safe and comfortable advocating for themselves. Something that we really stress a lot in class is this idea that oftentimes as an adult, if you communicate with the people in your life, whether they're your coworkers or your family or your neighbors, you can work things out. So rather than suffering in silence, it's always better to build those self-advocacy skills. I also think it's very important for students to look for new ways to grow and then share their understanding with other members of the classroom community. I think a lot of students are very caught up on the idea that they have to get a perfect grade, get it all perfect the first time, and it is less intrinsically motivated about learning something new and more extrinsically motivated about, I have to get the number in SIS. So I kind of want to support students in shifting away from that mindset that all of their successes are inherently quantifiable in some way. And then I think it's very important, going back to the first point about middle schoolers being in this transition period, for students to be sincere, to be sincerely invested in their learning, to be sincere with the people around them in their classroom community, and to be sincere about when they do or don't understand something, because both of those are really important for us to move forward as learners. And so to be successful, students will need to get comfortable with reflection and thinking about their own thinking. Because we use the workshop model, which has a lot of independent, self-directed work time while the teacher is pulling conferences or small group lessons, it's important for students to be able to identify, okay, what kind of working environment do I do well in? Or what kind of working environment do I know is going to get me distracted or get me frustrated, so that they can look for ways to tailor their environment accordingly. Students will also be willing to step out of their comfort zone if they want to get the most out of class. And that doesn't have to be anything drastic. It could just be trying a different book genre than the one they might normally read. Students will also need to collaborate with members of their classroom community. Every student will have a partner, and then those partnerships will be at a larger table with a couple other partnerships. And so that way there are more resources for students to tap and more people that the student can feel comfortable sharing their expertise with. And then also students will need to look for the ways that the content can apply to their lives. There is the oft repeated adage, like, when are we going to use this in real life? And so I think it's important for students to know that when we talk about a text, it isn't just about answering an SOL question correctly. Or when we do some writing, it's not just so that the teacher can check off a benchmark and say, okay, you wrote one whole paragraph. It's more about thinking about the ways that language arts and these ideas of communication and collaboration and comprehension can apply to basically any walk of life. So in language arts at Glasgow, we do concept-based units, one per quarter. And what this looks like is each quarter we will have a guiding theme and some essential questions that go with that theme. And then we'll look at a variety of genres of text, and we'll do our own writing and discussion surrounding those questions and that concept. So in first quarter, we start off with a short 2-week mini unit that we'll just be wrapping up at this point about individuality. And then from there, it shifts into community, which will be the bulk of our focus for first quarter. Then we go into the concept of justice in second quarter, followed by truth in third quarter. And then fourth quarter's reflection is a chance for students to look back at how much they've grown over the course of the year and emphasize that idea of continuing to refine, continuing to look for ways to grow, and continuing to know yourself as a learner and as a person. So as for grading, formative assessments are smaller checks for understanding during the learning process. They are not an end-all, be-all, and they occur frequently, both graded and ungraded. Summative assessments are usually larger, either activities such as a discussion, a reading assessment, or a larger written piece to get a more definitive, for that moment, snapshot of how a student is doing as they work towards mastery of whatever skills that we're looking to assess. And then there will be a lot of other feedback on how your student is organized, how they're behaving, but also just from teacher to student. We do a lot of reading and writing conferences and small groups. So I'll be giving students a lot of oral feedback through those conferences, or making suggestions if they're writing on a document or something, so that the students also have a voice in the feedback, and the students have a voice in soliciting the kind of feedback that will be helpful for them. For teacher support outside of school, I do have office hours. They are after school on Thursdays. And then Schoology is also a good place to check for assignments, online resources, the syllabus, and again, my contact information. And then SIS is the main hub where you can look at grades. And as for my contact info, this is also in Schoology, but I am, again, Miss O'Brien. My email is here, cobrien@fcps.edu. And then again, my office hours are after school on Thursdays. So in supporting your student or students in Language Arts 8, you might ask, what are you learning about, or what are you discussing in class? Is there anything that you might be missing, or a deadline that you might need an extension on, or that you're falling behind? Let's check Schoology and SIS together. And then definitely, if students are stuck or confused and we didn't get a chance to meet during our workshop in class, my office hours are Thursdays, 2:25 to 3:25. And then Schoology is, of course, also a resource. And then as for supplies, Language Arts is pretty light on those. Having a writing implement is always helpful, as is having your school-issued laptop and charger. Our submissions this year will be almost entirely digital, though if a student would like to handwrite something and submit a neat, clear photo of that, that's also totally fine. And then finally, students will always want to have an independent reading book, whether that's a physical print book or a digital copy of a book. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to spending this year with your students.